Hello, everyone, and welcome to Biodesign Now, where we'll uncover the latest innovations at the intersection of design, biology, art, and technology, hosted by myself, biodesigner Akir Hall, and biodesigner and artist Kirsten Tingle. Joining us today is our wonderful guest, Paula Molina.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. Paula is a Colombian biodesigner specializing at the intersection of textiles, surface design, and science. Her work pushes the boundaries of traditional printing techniques by incorporating living organisms into the process. Her innovative project, Printing Herbarium, focuses on screen printing and growing living moss patterns onto fabric. The project explores new ways of printing through incorporating living organisms and co-creating living textures. Paula is also a founding member of Biodesign Collective in London, and they have just finished curating and producing an exhibition through Haifa called Living with the Living.
Which was an incredible show.
Oh, thank you so much.
Amazing. So let's jump into our quick fire questions.
Perfect.
Okay, so our first little warm-up question for you is, what is the best organism that you've ever collaborated with?
Okay, well, I have to say moss, just because I love it. But it's also because I think it's showed me so many things about like living things. Moss has amazing capabilities. Like it's one of the organisms that has like inhabited this earth for longer. And is a primitive plant that doesn't need soil to survive or doesn't need pretty much anything. It survives in like the most crazy environments. So I think that's really cool. It's been very challenging as well because it takes a while to grow. So it's really slow. And I think when we work with organisms, we just want things to grow fast, right? Because it's the pace we're used to. But with mosses, it has also taught me to like just sit and wait because you can't do anything else. So it's been a great teacher.
Interesting. What is the worst organism you've ever collaborated with?
I wouldn't say I've collaborated with these organisms, but I feel in general fungi and bacteria is hard. Like I love them and they do amazing things, but it's just for me, it's how like jealous they are of anything. They just grow anywhere. You're trying to grow whatever, they are there. And that makes things really challenging sometimes. Like you make loads of samples and all of them are going to end up having fungi and bacteria, which is very challenging sometimes. It's also their magic, right? They are meant to do that. And you can see straight away, like if you have something living, it's going to go growing there. It's the magic of it, but it's also really challenging when you're trying to do other things with living organisms. Yeah.
Okay, so what in nature is inspiring you right now?
I think because I've been living in London for 3 years now, right? And before I lived all my life in Colombia where we don't have seasons, right? So we experience the same kind of environment, same daylight, same weather all year round. So my life was never like in that seasonal changes or having all those changes. And again, it's plants, but I just see here how that happens, right? From summer to winter, and it goes like in a whole cycle. And for me, it's fantastic to just see that. Which, of course, plants in Colombia have cycles. It's just like they don't have it at the same time. So you can see one tree without leaves, but then it will grow back. Or sometimes they don't even lose them all because the weather conditions are never that intense. So yeah, that always fascinates me. And now that I'm actually living it, the real life, basically, yeah, I really love it.
I'm really curious what your favorite season is.
Ooh, such a good question. Probably autumn. Yeah, probably autumn. Like winter is a lot. It's very intense. Summer, I always love like the hot weather, but I've always said like I love it when I have like the sea or like water around, but like London or any city with a lot of heat is also very challenging for me. It's just like it just cuts everything. But yeah, so autumn and spring are like, okay, It's
It's
a
like
good in
transition
between.
seasons,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's good. I like them.
Okay, last quick fire question.
Yeah.
What is your biggest biodesign pet peeve?
Okay, when you sent me the questions, I actually looked what that meant. And if I understand it right, it's like things that you dislike, kind of thing.
Something that you dislike or that's quite annoying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I got it right. Basically, I think for me, I don't know, all these innovations, they are coming like, well, we're biodesigning the future. There's something about I don't know, the way they express how they are doing it that really gives me the ick. It's like, oh yeah, we're revolutionizing this and that. Whereas I feel for at least the way I see it, the biodesign kind of, I don't know, way we talk about it should be much more like honest. We should be saying like, yeah, we're collaborating with organisms, like we're trying our best, but it's not like, oh, we're going to change the whole world. I think that's, I don't know. And it's something that a lot of companies now do. And it really makes me angry about the biodesign world as it's growing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think as well to really change the world and see where the field will grow to, we kind of need time. Like the moss has
Yes.
taught you, right?
Yes.
We need a bit more time to grow, essentially, as a field.
But I think what it's gonna, or in my perspective again, what it's gonna make us different again as a field is that honesty that no other fields have. For example, technology, when it boomed, it's like, oh yeah, we're changing. They do change the whole world, but it's that narrative that they have. It's like, oh yeah, we're revolutionizing this and that. I think if we're gonna actually make a change with biodesign, it should go being more honest, being like, these are the challenges, this is what we're doing, the time it takes. I don't know, like all that honesty that comes with living organisms as well.
It's a very slow revolution.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's
Which is the
nice.
beauty of it.
It is the beauty of it.
And speaking of the beauty of biodesign, that leads perfectly onto our first our first non-quick fire question, our first main question, which is, what is biodesign to you? How would you define biodesign?
Well, I've thought about that question a lot because also I've been designing some workshops around like biomaterials for different courses in UAL. And I think I got to the conclusion that for me, biodesign is a toolkit. So is all these sets of like knowledge and tools and things to work with that you can apply to anything or any discipline that you have, but really makes you think about ethics, really makes you think about the whole system you're impacting, people, the environment, other living things. So it's like a toolkit that makes you aware of whatever it is that you're doing, if that makes sense.
Ooh, I really like that. That's an interesting definition. It also makes me think of how practical biodesign often is, and how there's a real emphasis on using these tools and these knowledge systems to make the world around you actively better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's always something I always say in the workshops is like, if you're a fashion designer, product designer, architect, doesn't really matter. You can use biodesign. You can also be a biodesigner, which sometimes a lot of people are struggling to go into it or try things because they think they need to be like biologists or scientists or they need to know a lot about things. But for me, it's more like a toolkit that you can apply, whatever your practice is. So that's biodesign for me.
Yeah, I think that's really important, that it can be an intimidating field to get into, but the knowledge that it's a method and an approach and a philosophy that you can take into your work as any kind of maker, I think is really important and is part of the revolution.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Slow revolution.
Yeah, and bringing that slowness and that honesty into all fields of design and engineering, I think is the power of biodesign.
Absolutely. And it's something that, because I used to work in a technology company, so I have a lot of friends that are engineering and very I don't know, technical, and they know a lot of things about coding. but they've seen like our projects. I try to bring them into this world, and they are always so fascinated, because I think the main thing people tell me is like, oh, I know that you can do that with that sensor. I always knew you can program this and that, but I never thought you can use that for the things you're using it. So I think biodesign comes in there. It's like, yeah, we can use all this knowledge that we have as different practices, but we can make it better, or better for other living things or for the environment. Yeah.
So going back a little bit in time,
Yeah.
we would love to know like what your sort of early years were like in terms of your relationship with nature.
So I grew up in a city. I don't know if luckily or unluckily, but I grew up in the capital of Colombia, so a massive city, pretty much the same size as London, loads of people. Unfortunately, less parks, I would say. But in Colombia, in pretty much all the cities, we have something that is great, that all our cities are surrounded by mountains, which here is something that I really miss, because like everything seems like flat when you look at the horizon. In Colombia, it's not. Everything is like mountain, and you can always see them, even if you're in touch with them or not, they are there. And I think for me that was always fascinating. But yeah, I grew up in a city, but like always was a very like adventurous kid. So the school I went to had loads of like green area, which always helped us like connect with nature. My dad also liked to travel a lot, so we used to go on road trips and go to like different places. My family is not from the capital, so I was just traveling around to other places in which I was a bit more connected with nature. So I wasn't never like a kid that grew up in nature, but I was always somehow approaching it, and I loved it. I think I was never scared of it. I always like wanted to explore. So I think that's my approach.
And then when you were sort of deciding what you wanted to study, were you at that stage already interested in sort of these design and nature hybrids? Or as you were pursuing your design path, did you suddenly get kind of intrigued by this whole notion of biodesign?
I did get into biodesign really late in my design like studies, because I started uni in 2014, in which biodesign wasn't a thing at all, right? And I got into the design in like a very romantic way. So basically, I was gonna study engineering. That was my path, and I was set on it, and I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. Because I knew it already, my school took us to like an university campus tour to one of the uni I study. And because I already knew I was going to study engineering, I was like, I may just as well go to something else. And so I joined the design like tour. And when I saw it, I was like, I actually think this is amazing. My uni had also a very different approach to education in design. So it wasn't like graphic design or product design, it was just design. And at this point, what was going on in the world is like the design methodologies and like human-centered design was a boom at this point, and they were trying to teach that. So what they were trying to teach in the core was design methodologies, so all these tools, and we all had to see the same classes in that like studios, but then we all could choose classes that we like about media. So we will all be designers, but some people would be jewelry designers, some others would be graphic designers, others would go into media, or I went into textiles. So for me, it was so interesting that we all would connect in like the core classes, but then you can explore whatever media you were interested. So I was like, this is so cool. And for me, I've always been like super artsy and like crafty. But I never saw that as a way of living. For me, that was like a hobby. And when I saw that you could actually study that and do design as a living, I was like, I think I'm going to go that way. My family didn't took it the same way, to be fair. But so that's how I got into design. And again, this was already very new, the way they were teaching design. but biodesign wasn't in the curriculum at all because it wasn't a thing. But then in my last year, the first semester, I saw that in the class offer, they had opened a class that was called biodesign.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. This was 2017. So 3 years after. And I was like, that's so interesting. Like, I tried to read more, like, what is this? And when I got into the class, I found out that this was a new class that one of my teachers was opening. And I'm still in contact with her. She's amazing. She's the one who dragged me into the biodesign world. But basically, she's a biologist, a microbiologist that got tired of teaching in biology because she felt that they were doing amazing things, but they were just archiving that on the lab or whatever, and nobody was doing anything or knowing anything about the amazing things scientists were doing. And she was like, I think we need to do something else. Like, I think we really need to do something. And she found on the internet the Biodesign Challenge. And she went to the design school in the same university, and she proposed to the dean, like, hey, we can open a class. You give me a designer, and we give a class together. And we can take the winning group of that class to the Biodesign Challenge as an incentive for the students to, like, get in the class. And that's what happened. And my group won the group,
Wow. Yeah.
the class prize that was going to the Biodesign Challenge with our project. And then I got there and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, it was a room full of people that were trying to do this. And then I realized that there was movements around the world because, like, I didn't know that. I didn't know this was a thing. Also, this was the second year of the Biodesign Challenge, so it was also really, really new. But since then, I was like, I think this is something that I really want to do. But I never considered it before, so I was almost at the end of my studies, and it was the first time I was thinking, like, this is a possibility. But I think I was really lucky I got into it before I graduated. Otherwise, probably other would be my path at this point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Early adopter.
Yeah.
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 So what was your project, like the group project that got into Biodesign
So
Challenge?
we did again, with plants and textiles. So what we did was this living surface, we called it. It was basically a piece of textile that was with cotton fibers and also like metal fibers, which would change shape depending on the temperature. So we connected that a living surface we did to a house plant with multiple sensors. So we used like lighting, we used a touch sensor, we used water, humidity, a few sensors. And then with an Arduino, we were reading the information from the plant, and the textile would change the form depending on what the plant was needing. So it was creating like this new language between plants and us, because we don't really understand plants. In our research, we discovered that the first reason because plants die, it's because we don't water them. But the second reason is because we water them a lot.
Yeah.
So it's like we understood that we don't know how to talk with plants, like we don't really understand, and something we're losing. So we tried to create this interface that would translate that information into something that we could easily read. But we didn't want to do that with an app or a screen, so we created a textile that would. It was kind of mimicking, so it was biomimicry as well. So it was like mimicking the pattern of a leaf, and it would make like different shapes depending on what the plant was saying. It was super interesting. Yeah. We were the only group in the whole cohort that had a functional prototype, because biodesign usually is very speculative. Yeah. But we didn't knew that, so we at this point were like, we have to make it work. So we had a functional prototype, which That's everyone amazing. Was fascinated with. I mean, to be fair, it was a very small piece of clothing connected to a plant, but when you touch the plant, the thing would like squeeze, and it was so cute. And then we proved the concept, like, this is possible, you can make it. And it was great. We thought we were gonna win, we didn't. But
I think you should have won.
Yeah.
Me too. But you know who won? CSM?
Wow.
Yeah.
There's so much lore.
They won with a speculative project, but also that put CSM in a bit of in my radar. Was like, okay, what is this school doing in terms of biodesign? And that's how I find out about the program after.
Okay, so it was through Biodesign Challenge and your rivals in Biodesign.
Yeah, but at the point we were there, the course didn't even exist.
Yeah, I was going to say, was it
Because
Material Futures or something?
It was they were Material
Okay.
Futures, and they were working with Carol Colette in the living
We
systems.
do love Carol
They're
Colette.
Yeah, no, I love her too, but that was our rival at this point.
You're like, time to make friends with my enemy.
Yes. But that put them in my radar, and I was like, okay, I might see what they are up to. But we were angry just because we had a functional prototype and nobody else did.
Yeah.
I think this is, I would love to linger on this a little bit, because I feel like this is a big tension often in biodesign, is to go with something functional or to go with something speculative. And maybe you've thought quite a bit about the kind of benefits of both and where you think biodesign should lean.
Yeah, I really feel the speculative part is important just because it makes us think about these other futures. If we don't think about that, we won't come with like innovative projects, right? We will just do something very basic. So the speculative part is very important, but in my personal opinion, I do think we at least need to prove the concept. That's my personal opinion. Like, we have to make at least something work, because maybe it's a project that it doesn't work right here, right now. But if I do a little bit, then it can be done after. And I think that's the important part. Otherwise, for me, the whole research and the whole, sense of making a project is not, well, why are we wasting our time doing something that is never going to actually be in the world, or at least make a little difference?
Yeah.
So that's my personal opinion, and that's I always try to make at least something that is like, okay, it might work. And that's what we did with that. And it was super interesting for us to see like that speculative way of thinking, because for us, it wasn't a way. I think in Colombia, design is way more practical. So it's not, I think that's a very, I don't know if from the UK or like other countries, but it's way more in the cloud, whereas design in Colombia is super practical. It's like, this is what you do and everything go, like, it's a product, is this. It's not in the air, it's something practical. And because we thought about that, we made something. But then we could also go with an idea, which we didn't know. So,
So it's interesting because you seem to have a very interdisciplinary design education at university. And I think when you have some design courses that are very broad, the practical application side of it is less of a focus, and it's sometimes a bit more about design philosophy, but you had a broad design education that was still very like practical and like outcome performance based.
Well, that was the thing. It was super interesting because the core, like teaching was about design methodology. So it was like very theoretical, but you would complement that classes with media. So you will always end up doing something. And it was like a very intense design school. Like, I really spent so many nights without sleeping. It was very intense.
Design school.
But I loved it because I learned so much. But all of our like final submissions was like a process book, a final book of the project. Like, you had things to show. It was just not in the air. And for us, that was a bit of a challenge. What we saw, like, someone can win the Biodesign Challenge with nothing, with a poster. Which, it was an amazing idea, an amazing project, but
A poster nonetheless.
yes, exactly. So I do think biodesign has to be a bit in between. Otherwise, like, we need the amazing ideas, but we also need a real change. And if we don't make it happen, then I think we are wasting our time.
Yeah, I think there is definitely a really strong middle ground between those things. And projects can have parts that are focused on narrative and still be functional. And I think that's like a really amazing sweet spot.
Absolutely.
Bless you. That I think we're all striving for, really.
Yeah, I think that's the strongest part, being in the middle, being like, I have this amazing idea, but I could prove that it's at least possible.
But yes, as we were saying, things in the ecological climate are getting really bad at the moment. And so that really highlights what you're saying about the importance of real change being a focus. I think there's also maybe like a pivot point in biodesign in terms of how developed the biology of a project is and the research is already before you implement it into like a product or a system. Do you think that's also like a part of the equation that shifts whether your project is more narrative focused or more like impact focused, whether you're experimenting with the biology and it's very like early stages of research in the science, or whether it's later stages and it's like, okay, this could really be something, or you're...
Well, definitely not having like a biology protocol to follow or all of these, or the research is not there, well, it's a roadblock. Because like we could have amazing ideas, but if this hasn't been done before, it's a roadblock. But I do think biodesign has also, as a toolkit, I think it is, ways of tweaking that into things you can actually make. For example, in my project, by growing moss, nobody who actually thought about growing them on, like why? Like why would someone would do that? So I researched a lot and there was no protocol to follow, basically. Like it was super... very experimental also, because it was a gardening thing as well, so you could do like all these milkshakes, but they never worked. But then I talked with a scientist who's been just working with moss all his life, and he gave me a half an hour talk, and that changed my project. But he was like, oh, just try these and that, just use these green parts, and not all mosses have spores, something that I didn't know. So he was like, they can reproduce just by fragments, but they don't have spores, so you're trying to grow something that doesn't have spores on it, so that's why it's not growing. And I was like, of course. But things I didn't know, and they were not there in the site, but once I knew that, I could start tweaking those organisms like challenges and like make them in my favor, kind of thing. So I think you can kind of work with it. And again, it doesn't have to be like you end up with a final product. But if you make a few experiments that show that it can get there, I think that's what's needed.
Yeah, like proof of concept.
Proof of concept is super important. And I would definitely think that's the future. Otherwise, it's just so conceptual and it never gets anywhere. But if you are like, okay, you can extract this compound from this bacteria and you can actually do it yourself. And then you show in a little piece of whatever that you can incorporate that into a material. You have it. That's it. Like the way you're scaling that up, or that's going to come. But at least you did that. And that's what you need.
So having guidance from a biologist can make a big impact, or at least
I think
knowing your
having a team. Well, it's hard. We make projects on our own, right? But like at least trying to have a team of people that know different things. For me, it's the most important thing, because otherwise it's just so hard. You don't know everything, but like. And that's the thing why, for example, my teacher wanted to do this course, because she realizes scientists know so much, but they don't know how to apply that to anything, or they don't think it's needed. So they just never talk about it. Whereas this scientist, he just like his research is in moss, and his day-to-day is research moss, but he doesn't do anything with it. He doesn't even grow them. Well, sometimes he does, but it's more about researching.
He doesn't have a mossarium at home?
Yeah, well, I don't know if he does. I spoke to him online. He lives in Canada. But yeah, and then I came with this project and he was like, oh, I never thought about it, but maybe you can use this, this, and that. So you definitely, if you can, because it's not always easy, try to find people to at least give you advice. Also for my project, I use a lot of like Arduino, which I don't know how to use, so that also helped a lot. It was like, okay, if you do this, you can actually regulate temperature, humidity. So I knew the basics, but it wasn't like I knew how to do it. So I just grab a bit of like all the others' knowledge and then use that for my project.
So the future of biodesign is collaboration.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So
Absolutely.
let's go back to how we got to Printed Herbarium. So you were doing a project with textiles in biodesign for your group project for Biodesign Challenge.
Yeah.
And then was it straight from there to MA Biodesign at CSM in London? You're like, I'm going to figure out why you guys won.
No, there was a gap again because the course didn't exist for 2 more years.
Okay.
So that was 2017. And biodesign started in 2019.
Yes.
Which was also COVID, and it wasn't the time, I think, to come to make the course. So I did had a break between my first uni and the second. I did have a break after. It was sad because I did that project and I did my final piece of work in uni, which was not very biodesign. It was like textiles inspired in nature, but it wasn't like including nature at all. And then I graduated, and then I just started working in a robotics company as like doing all sorts of things. Startups are like that. So you start as something and then you end up doing all of it. I ended up doing even like NDAs and like legal, HR, like all of it, which was also an amazing school and I learned a lot. But I had a break in which I was not very in contact with like biodesign. Then it came to 2019. I saw that the course like was launching. Then I saw someone from my uni that was doing it, which was, it wasn't like close friend, but like we spoke. So I called him, was like, hey, what's going on? And he was like, yeah, I'll let you know how the course is. And I was like, yeah, great. But I didn't want to be the first year just because I thought I would, I don't know. I didn't want to be the experiment.
Yeah.
And then 2020, so COVID came and I didn't want to pay for rent in London to be in my house taking the course. So I waited until the next year, so 2021. So I worked for 2 years and then I quit my job and I was just doing not a lot for 6 months. And that's when I applied for the course. So it was a break, but then I think I needed that break to be more inspired. So I was like, okay, I'm done with education now, but I want to go back to like biodesign. And yeah, for me, that having a biodesign course was like, this is great. I can actually explore that.
One question I have about your project, which I love, is that you did 2 things simultaneously, and most people just do one. Like you built not only tools for screen printing with moss, but you also built an ecosystem for growing this in. Can you talk a bit about how you formulated your project and then also the sort of trials and the intrigue of trying to do these 2 very difficult, innovative things in one project?
Yeah, well, yeah. So my first idea of project was like I wanted to make textures a bit more natural, if that makes sense, because I always work with a screen printer. I'm a textile designer, and I love like the flocking, all of these like textures. I think they create amazing textiles. So I was like, how can we make these in a better way? So that was my kind of question, very broad at the beginning. And then I started looking at plants, and I was like, plants have all these like furry characteristics on them already. They have amazing things. Why can't I just grow these into my textiles? But then I spoke to a lot of people and like Paula and Shem in the lab, and they were like, it's so hard because you're trying to grow like a cell. You're not going to be able to do that in a year. And I was like, okay. So I was like hitting a lot of roadblocks on how to make this happen. And then I, for some reason, ended up having a tray of moss that someone was throwing away. And I was looking at it, I was like, this can be amazing. So I just started reading about moss, which I didn't know anything before. Well, not a lot. I knew basics. And then I realized that they don't need soil, that they just can reproduce by fragments. And I was like, all these characteristics work in my favor because I can try to grow them in my textiles. So it was a bit of a coincidence, but then, so I started again researching a lot. How can I grow these? People grow them like, they do like moss milkshakes, which is basically you blend the moss with like nutrients and you paint with them.
You don't drink them?
No.
Okay. Just clarify.
No, you paint with them, and people do that for like gardening, like do patterns in gardens. But again, it's all in like gardening books, but it never works because people just do it very experimentally.
Yeah.
But there's ways to make that work. So I just went into that world, and once I was there, it was so hard to get me out. Like it was like, we're gonna keep this project with moss. It's the way to do it. And I really enjoyed doing that. But then when I started doing my first samples, which was pretty much tweaking this moss milkshake, so I grabbed moss, I blended it with like some screen printing, a binder and some nutrients, and then I was screen printing with that. Nothing was growing. But then I realized that I also, if I want to see some grow, I have to give them the conditions to grow because it has to be in a very, very moist environment. So I was coming to uni every single day to spray all my samples, even Saturdays, for like 6 months. And I had like these shelves with my things, and I bought like a big greenhouse to like keep a bit the moisture. But because it was just a cotton textile, it was drying so fast, so it couldn't hold the water for a long time. And I couldn't like put them in water because they would just they would kill the spores if there's any. So it was such a challenging thing, and I started to think I have to make I have to make the samples, but I also have to make a place where they live. Otherwise, it's never gonna work. So it was like that. I just realized really quickly that I actually had to do that. And then, that's when I talked with the scientists, and I realized it wasn't the way it wasn't the right way to do it. So then I started just screen printing the nutrients and flocking the moss on top. So it was another, I bought one of a flocking machine, basically.
What is a flocking machine?
So flocking is the process where they do like these velvet texturing things. Mm-hmm. And the flock just it's an electromagnetic field that it creates. It's like a little gun that you spray. But it creates an electromagnetic field between the textile and the little hairs that come. And because it has that magnetic field, the hairs just come they land into the textile standing up. So it looks like velvet.
Yeah.
But they do that in the industry with I don't know, plastic. It's random materials. It's not the most sustainable. But I bought the machine, and then I was putting my moss into that. So I was doing that, and the moss was landing, standing, the little fragments of moss was landing, standing up, which gave me more possibilities of growing because they were bigger fragments. Mm-hmm. So that's what I started doing. But again, I had to actually build a house in which they were living, and that's how the greenhouse came into be the final piece, which the textiles are also the final piece, but I needed to make something for them to live, which is also a big question, I guess, for people. They're always what's the use of these? Where are you going to use this textile after? I still don't know, but for me it was, again, a proof of concept. We can do it, and we can use all these biodesign tools to change the normal tools of printing, for example, a flocking machine, just the screen printing, the binders, to make a biodesign project. That's how I got there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really interesting because usually you think, okay, I'm just going to work with this organism and get my outcome, but so much of your time and so much of a project is actually building the environment and getting the conditions right and focusing on the space within which you are going to cultivate your living system, which I think is an important thing for people to know.
It's super important, and that's part of biodesign, because it wasn't just me building my greenhouse. All the rest of my classmates, they had to create bioreactors. They have to make tools that don't exist right now to make their projects work, otherwise it just doesn't. So for me, that's the most interesting things. Like, yeah, you think about how to collaborate with these organisms and do a material or whatever it is you're doing, but you also have to think about the tools that you have to build to make that collaboration possible. So I think that's super interesting in the biodesign world.
So it's key to either hack existing tools or create your own.
Yeah. And the hacking is, I think, is one of the best alternatives because tools are there. And for me, one of the best way to do it is like you just go online and search like how do they do this in the industry, and the tools are there. Sometimes you just have to like try them. But yeah, we don't really know how things are made. And when we start researching, it's like, oh, we can actually make this a biological tool as well. So yeah, that's really cool.
Interesting. Sort of starting to bring our conversation a little bit to a close. Could you talk a bit about what one of your dream projects would be and why?
Yeah. So I think my dream goal after all this is creating. It's still very in the speculative world, if I'm being honest, but it's creating a kind of community lab to create biodesign projects in Colombia, just because I feel we have loads of biodiversity and also cultural knowledge that can be the perfect mix to like these other tools of biodesign. And yeah, I think that could really be a big boost to like the economy and projects that are different and make more sense in nature. So that's a bit of a dream of why I want to end up doing at the end. But yeah, in terms of project, I want to keep exploring with moss and with other organisms. There was actually a project in your cohort that I watched in one of the reviews. It was like for your first year, guys. But they make like this artificial lichen.
Yeah.
I thought it was fascinating. And the way all these things work. So I think the growing with textiles and how we can make these new surfaces is really where I want to go. Keep exploring with moss or other photosynthetic organisms, lichen or cyanobacteria. Yeah, all of these. So that's when I want to keep exploring that.
Nice. So I think you're also doing a lot of work in terms of educating the next generation of biodesigners. So like I've been to your workshop.
We really liked the workshop.
And had a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you.
And you're also one of the founding members of Biodesign Collective. So that's like, really bringing the field to like more and more people, like the exhibition you did with Haifa, Living with the Living. So how is Biodesign Collective going and what are your dreams for Biodesign Collective?
Okay, we are actually in that conversation at the moment. So a Biodesign Collective was born just for us as an excuse to keep doing our practices, if that makes sense. Because you enter into the world and it's like, okay, now what's going to be my job? But we wanted to keep pushing this practice that we all had. So we came together and we were like, we want this to be a space in which we can all keep developing that practice and also share with the world what we're doing. So at the moment, we are going to register the collective to do more consultancy and have more projects and be able to apply for funding, because at the moment we can't receive any funding just because we are individuals. So it's going to be institution soon in which we can at least make it grow and also explore the biodesign world a bit more. So that's how it's going. We hope it's going to be bigger and it gets to more people. It's never meant to be like this startup or company that's doing crazy things. It's more about spreading the word and getting to more people. So I think that's our goal at the moment.
Wow, very cool.
Hey, brilliant. So for our final question, we'd like to ask, to whom
or to what
would you like to dedicate this conversation to?
I'll definitely start with the Biodesign Collective. For me, it's the thing that's keeping me inspired, because like graduating is a challenging time. and then you have to face the real world and the real challenges in work. But for me, this group of people, it's what's keeping me inspired and keep working on my things, which is, I think it's amazing. I always tell to them that for me, the best thing of the course was to meet them, because we were a very, very like close cohort and we became very good friends. And for me, that's been super inspiring and fascinating. So yeah, to the collective.
That is beautiful. Thank you very much.
So lovely. Where can we follow what you're doing, and where can people who are listening follow what you're doing?
Okay, so the moment I have an Instagram that's called About Matter. That's where I upload my work. At the moment, it's a bit empty, but it's gonna get there in this break. That's
Stay tuned.
my goal.
Watch
Yes.
this space.
Yes. Yeah, you can follow me there. We also have a Biodesign Collective Instagram, which is like that, Biodesign Collective. And yeah, just follow us there for updates.
Great. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
joining us
Thank
today,
you,
Paula.
guys.
Much.